All right, what's up, guys? We've got another episode of the Growth by Shawn podcast. So I'm really excited about this one because I get to sit down and pick the brain of Jennifer Broxterman. I
Broxterman,
don't,
you got it.
yeah, I don't know why that kind of slipped up on me, but the way that I met Jen was a note taker. I don't know why they only had you doing notes for Enlifted because there's so much more that I felt you could have given. I really liked the class that you were able to run. It was really fun.
Thank you.
you know
Thank you.
so um there's just so much about Jen. It's hard to uh not nitpick but dial it into one thing that Jen does. So the way I think that we can start this that's going to be best for the audience is, how is it that you get so much done?
I asked myself the same question. No,
Okay.
no, I can accredit it to a couple of cool strategies that I've learned to hone in for what works for me. One is because I am a dietitian, I'm in the healthcare profession. I think really taking care of your body is such a gift in that it comes back in energy and positivity and communication and relationships. So I have a few non-negotiables that I protect dearly, which is getting up and working out every single morning. I try to always have like really healthy meals and snacks and make my healthy food environment really accessible. We definitely bonded over
Mm.
our water consumption in our class calls. I drink a lot of water. And then I just, at nighttime, try to wind down, have good sleep habits, and really positive self-talk. So weirdly, like I think of it like a cell phone battery. I feel like I'm walking around at a 92% at all times, when I think a lot of people with a lot of junk food, a lot of social media exposure, a lot of, time frittered away with distractions, we all get the same amount of hours, but not necessarily are people getting recharged when they're doing, self-care recharging activities, where I think, yeah, exercise and water and time in nature and sleep and connection and going for long walks, like those supercharge my battery. So then I'm just like this little energizer girl that just goes and goes and goes and gets a lot done.
Yeah. Now, how did you start to implement all these different analogies and metaphors and games for clients that you've worked with over the years? Because you have millions of them, I feel, and you're able to
Yes.
make it super simple and super easy for anyone that touches base with you, and just instant connection between both of you.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that compliment. It's simple, but I worked really hard for it to come across as easy and effortless and fun to understand. And there's sort of two parts to that origin. So personally, I was always a really hard worker, but I was never the most naturally talented person. I was never the best athlete. I was never the best student. But I learned that by working really hard and breaking it down into step-by-step pieces, I thought of it like skill building. I could pick up any skill if I built myself a staircase and mastered one teeny tiny component at a time. And I actually look at that as a gift versus the people that are just genetically gifted, genetically super smart, genetically super athletic, where they're like, what? You can't do this? You just do this. And you're like, no, but I can't do that. So what are the steps in between? So one is I've always learned by breaking things down into small, simple steps and then mastering the stage that I'm at before going on to the next part. But professionally, I actually was so grateful to be thrown in a particular challenging scenario. So I was hired to be a university professor for foods and nutrition, but it came about very unexpectedly. One of the profs had a, what's it called, like an emergency pregnancy where she had to go on emergency leave and bed rest, and a very like high risk pregnancy while she had twins. And I basically got the phone call on Saturday morning, and they're like, will you take over her class that's like actively going? You start Monday morning at 8:30. Like it's a yes or no. You have to decide right now. And I was like, heck yes. Like when an opportunity comes knocking on the door, you say yes. So I agreed to it before I knew even what class they would wanted me to fill in on. And the class I was picking up for was a first year food science, foods and nutrition course, but it was for any of the students who were not majoring in foods and nutrition as their major. So it was for the art students and the math students and the English and music students who just needed a science credit to graduate, and they had to pick something from the repertoire to be like, okay, fine, I have my science credit. So what I realized is, even though I nerding, on the science of nutrition for years and now understood the complexities. It was like getting a batch of kindergartners where it's like, okay, how do I get them to pass this course, have a really good time in it? But because many of them haven't taken science in 3 or 4 years since they dropped it in high school, how do I teach science in a way that's fun and relatable? And so I just started to practice communication using storytelling, metaphors, analogies, because they made the really complicated science memorable, sticky, fun, and enjoyable. And it just kept people coming back to class. So I was like, this is really an effective teaching strategy. And I started to do more of that in my own dietitian coaching, and my clients got better results. And as soon as I let go of like the ego of trying to impress people with how smart I was and realize that it's not about me, what I'm serving, my job is to help the person that I'm working with, ego aside, simplicity, gamification, metaphors, that just became my second language of how I speak. Yeah. So that's kind of my funny origin story of that.
Yeah. Now, how do you live more, because you have so much information that and just knowledge, okay? How do you realize like it's time to live in the present and this is what's going to be most beneficial right now versus living in the future and trying to utilize every single piece of information that you gather?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I have 3 letters that I often will go back to, and you can totally steal this if you're listening as well. The 3 letters are the BDO, and what that stands for is the best doable option. And that's in contrast to something called the BTO, the best theoretical option. So when I think to the future, there are so many avenues, there are so many paths, there are so many ways we can apply information to make our lives better, wonderful, healthier, happier. But in reality, we are only ever living in this present moment. So the BDO is like, what can I do? Do is an action word in this moment, best doable option. So if you are at an airport and you're catching a flight and you have to grab lunch somewhere in the airport, it's not what is the most, paleo friendly meal I could pack from home and try to get through security. It's like, I'm in the airport, I'm about to catch a plane. What's the best doable option right here, right now? When you get back from vacation, what's the best doable option? My body's adjusting to a time change. So I think living life moment to moment, doing always your best in any given moment in front of you, but grace that your best rises up and down based on the circumstances you find yourself in, completely dispels analysis paralysis. So you hear about people that are stuck in information overload. They are learning, they're consuming, they're theorizing, they're always looking for optimal. And I find, and my clients taught me this, the people most trapped, always pursuing optimal, spend a lot of time researching before they start doing. The people that embrace imperfection and they just do their best moment by moment spend a lot more time doing, even if they're a little bit lower than the perfect theoretical behavior. But over time, their consistency, turtle versus hare, outperforms the person always waiting for the right time, the right plan, the right, moment to go start into action. So that would be my advice, or how I think about it.
So, from a general standpoint or from clients that you've had in the past, why do you think a majority of people get stuck trying to make everything perfect as opposed to acting now and taking the messy action?
Thought about this a lot because it's very common. The researching is the form of perfectionism and procrastination all wrapped into one. And if you look at perfectionism and goal, right, we have this ideal version of ourselves, our best version that we hope and wish and think we're going to become. But that's always out there somewhere in the future. And so by spending more time learning to get it right, it feels really good, like we're doing something, that learning, that reading, that understanding is professional growth, is personal development. But if we do absolutely nothing with it and it just stays in our head, then you are actually not any different than the person who didn't read and didn't do anything, because the only measurable thing is your degree of action and consistency. So I think a lot of people, why they get stuck, it feels good. It's like, oh, there's this tension between like, I don't like where I am, I want to get here, ooh, I'm going to learn about what people like who are here are doing. And so they're learning and reading, and that feels good, but you haven't actually done anything. Where the uncomfortable part of growth is to go, I don't have all the information. I don't feel fully ready. I don't have all the perfect timing and the sea hasn't parted, but I'm going to take that first step and I'm going to take the next step. And that's actually more uncomfortable, is to embrace the imperfect immediate actions you can do. I think that takes a lot more courage than I'm going to learn. And then when I have myself set up, I'm going to do. And so I'm very grateful. One of the compliments Mark England often gives me is he's like, Jenn is just an action taker. Like, speed of implementation is so important. So I learn something and I only have a concept grasp, but I'll just start to take action on it because I know I'm going to pick up more skills in the real doing and learning on my feet versus just always the researching learning. So I think that's the conundrum of why people tend to get stuck there.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you always been like this in terms of action first?
No, I
Okay.
was totally one of those good girl bookworm, like you study for the test, pressure, until I became a small business owner, an entrepreneur. And the only way you get food on the table, the only way you get rewarded where people will pay you for your services is you actually have to take action. You actually have to do the thing. You have to build the website. You have to build a package. You have to go for the sale. You have to have an appointment. And so I was spending all this time trying to get the logo perfect, the website perfect, pricing perfect, but I didn't have a single conversation with someone about, like, I'm here to help. This is what I coach. And I realized this was not going to work in the real world because the deadline was month, rent had to be paid, groceries had to be bought. And so I just relaxed a little bit and let go of some of that pressure and stress from my childhood of good grades in school, and just was like, it's going to be messy and I won't get it right the first time or the second time, but I can do half okay, half action that will teach me what I need to learn. Even if I fall on my face, I'm going to learn from that experience and I'll get up and I'll be better the next time. And so I just actually realized the magic of success is about taking action.
Hmm. Now, I also started to dive into your free course. Okay. And what made you decide to put a free course out there and put so much time into the free course? And why is it a good resource for others?
Thank you for saying that. So what motivated me is I'm actually giving myself these 6 months of a work sabbatical. So what that meant is my day-to-day stuff that I normally do and be paid for, I'm taking a complete step back. And I just wanted to use this time for a couple of key goals. One was just rest and learning and growth and challenging myself in new ways. So one of my skills I wanted to pick up in the 6 month goal is to get a little bit better on camera, which includes YouTube and some course building. And so I thought, what a cool way, because I'm not asking for any money for this. This is just a practice run for me to get better at something, to build a free nutrition course for others where I can practice being in front of a camera, practice, making it short and to the point. And then I'm just going to release it with no expectations. I'm not charging any money for it, and just see how it's received. And that will give me some confidence and capabilities that if I do want to go back and, film multiple courses, I have some evidence that I can do this. So the goal of my sabbatical is to learn new skills. And my second goal of my sabbatical is to give freely in all different
Mhm.
ways. So I've had entrepreneur friends ask to go to coffee and pick my brain over a problem they're having. And I'm like, yeah, my schedule is wide open. Let's
Mhm.
go help you with a business problem. Or I've had, more junior coaches ask if they can, get some career planning and support. Yes, happy to support that way. So giving back and being creative and practicing some new skills is the only thing I'm trying to do these 6 months. So that
Hmm.
little course was like the little baby that came out of one of those being my main goals for right now.
Mhm. Now, as you continue to learn and grow, rinse, repeat, is there a point that it becomes diminishing returns where you already have so much knowledge? How much more can you gather in your select area? versus now I have to go and learn other things, which will then in turn continue to help me in the realm of how you work with clients now?
I like that question. I'm going to give a little bit of a metaphor answer in true Jen fashion.
Mhm.
I think of it like a well-balanced meal. Like vegetables are so good for us, right? Like eat your veggies. They're packed full of vitamins and minerals. But there's only, a point where you have enough vegetables on your plate and you have to start getting some protein, right? For the benefits of that, or some complex carbohydrates with more, with some fiber or some healthy fats like omega-3s. And so I think about my career trajectory. When I started, I was a dietitian in the very beginning. So I thought I have to just keep doing continuing education about being a better dietitian. What else can I learn about nutrition so I can be better for my clients? And I was just packing my plate full of veggies, knowing that veggies were good for me, but filling it sky high. And then I realized, oh, I am not just a dietitian, I'm a business owner. Okay, there are some empty parts of my plate right now that also need some nourishment. I need some bookkeeping skills. I need some marketing skills. I need some leadership skills. I need to learn some hiring and HR skills. I need some technology skills like building out websites and automations and apps and things like that. So then I started to acquire, more continuing education. And now I don't just look at it as I need to keep learning more in my discipline. Yes, that's still an important part. I still add veggies to my plate, but I try to look at myself as a whole human, not only on the professional side, how do I round out my professional skills, but on the personal side. And like Enlifted, I didn't realize it was going to become a professional tool, but I signed up for Enlifted more for a personal nourishing, meal or snack of like, I want to do this mindset course. I think this is going to be really helpful. So when I think about investing in myself, I just sort of take a look at my plate metaphorically of what areas are already well nourished, or maybe I have to swap out a subject for something else. But where are the gaps on my healthy plate? And that's where I'm going to spend some time and some financial investment to just continue to build and to grow.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's kind of silly. I think in food terms
Yeah.
often.
When you first decided to sign up for Enlifted and you talk about personal growth, were there struggles that you had that made you want to sign up? Or was it overall, I know that there are still areas that I can improve upon?
Think it's probably a little bit of both. I
Mhm.
mean, to be honest, this is going to sound hilarious. When I signed it up for Enlifted, I had never seen a podcast of the Enlifted crew. I'd never seen Mark on Instagram Live. I knew nothing other than there's this course. It's about mindset. It's well received by others. Cool. And I was like, okay, I like mindset stuff. I think it's neat to be resilient and strong. Sign me up. And I just signed up, did not look into them until the class started. And then it was like, bam. And because you're now an Enlifted grad, what you're walking into. I had no idea what I actually signed up for with Enlifted. I just thought mindset's cool. I like being really resilient, and it's one more tool or training session to make me a stronger, better, more capable human. And never hurts to be the best, kindest version of yourself. So I thought that would help me with that.
Hmm.
And it did, and so much more.
Yeah. What is what do you think is the most valuable piece of knowledge that you have acquired thus far?
Ooh, that is really tough to answer in just one. Well, okay,
Mhm.
I'll go on one of the things that's more recent that I've
Mhm.
realized
Mhm.
is truly the power of our words and our self-talk.
Mhm.
So, as a dietitian for quite a long time, I was always drawing this structure that I called the iceberg of success. And I would label it under five tiers. So the top tier, the little tiniest bit, was willpower. We all need bits and pieces of willpower, but you will not change as a person trying to run on willpower alone. So then knowledge is the second piece, but also teeny tiny. Knowledge can fill in gaps, but knowledge is not the be all end all to change in your life, because we all have access to knowledge. That's not always the case, right? So as we go under the surface of the water, there is our habits, like our daily patterns and routines. Then there's a layer of our environment, our physical space, the social environment, who we choose to interact and surround ourselves with, and our online environment. Are we listening to podcasts like this to think and to learn and be curious and grow? Or are we like mindlessly scrolling on social media? But the deepest layer in my self-talk has always been the layer of mindset. And in mindset, I knew that that incorporated our positive self-talk, our inner bully voice, our self-sabotaging phrases, our fears, our insecurities. And so for me, I've always been fascinated by the mindset part of changing our actions, our habits, our ways, and the power of words, the way that we talk to ourselves, the words that we use to identify ourselves, how we want to show up. And if I can I read an exercise that just totally was the light bulb switch that like completely flipped this all on for me? Okay, so this is called the coffee cup or the teacup exercise. So it goes like this. You're holding a cup of coffee when someone comes along and bumps into you or shakes your arm, making your coffee spill everywhere. Why did you spill the coffee? Well, because someone bumped into me. Nope, wrong answer. You spilled the coffee because there was coffee in your cup. Had there been tea in your cup, you would have spilled tea. Whatever is inside of the cup is what will spill out. When life comes along and shakes you, which will happen, whatever is inside of you will come out. It's easy to fake it until you get rattled. So we have to ask ourselves, what's in my cup? When life gets tough, what spills over? Is it joy, gracefulness, peace, humility? Or is it anger, bitterness, harsh words, and reactions? Life provides the cup. You choose how to fill it. So today, let's work towards filling our cup with gratitude, forgiveness, joy, words of affirmation and kindness, and gentleness and love for others. And I just loved that activity. And I think every day about like being this vessel, being this cup. And I'm going to bring in a little bit of a health story. I got diagnosed with very advanced stage 3 ovarian cancer 1 week after I turned 34. And essentially the oncologist looked at me and he said, I got to shoot you straight. This is really bad. It's incredibly advanced. It's like pancreatic cancer. You get it and you die. So the survival statistic is that only, 8% of people live to 5 years. Within a year, most likely you won't be here. So I need you to know you need to go home and get your will and affairs in order before we take you into surgery. And I looked that doctor in the eye and I said, someone has to be in the 8%. Why not me? And then the very first thing I did when I got home from that appointment is I drew myself a teacup and I thought about the words for how I wanted to show up. And I put down things like determination, hope, positivity, bravery, hard work, love. And then my overarching word on the teacup, unstoppable. And I was like, I might die, I might live, I don't know. I can't control that, but I'm going to get bumped and I am ready. This is what's going to come out of me. So, bit of a crazy way to answer that, but it started with an exercise, faced in a crisis of a real life-threatening health diagnosis. And I think ever from that moment, I've resonated so deeply with those words. And I truly just feel like I show up as positive, determined, hardworking, full of love and unstoppable. And I feel like I really am that force to be reckoned with each and every day.
Even before that moment, I have chills over here. But I love the cup analogy. Like it was so easy to visualize for me. And I thought of words that I was like, okay, how did I show up today? What can I show up as right now? When things go and shake me, what happens? And I think about times in my life where, okay, this didn't go as planned. How did I come out of that? How did I react to that? For
Right.
you, with those words, after that moment, was that already the words that you felt were impactful for you, or did that moment make them what they are today, and how you feel about them and how you feel about yourself in terms of how you show up?
Yeah, when I was sitting there, I drew a blank teacup and I was sitting there with markers being like, what few words are so precious to go in? I was thinking about what the kind of person I had to become in order to have the fighting chance of not dying from ovarian cancer in my 30s. And so just these words bubbled up and I was like, they're already in me. And now I'm just going to hang on to them and express them all the way through. Because I was like, I'm going to have chemo, fine. Then this is what I'm going to be like when I go through chemo or not, or surgery. And it just was like, no matter what news is coming, no matter what they're going to possibly say to me, I can't control any of that, but I can receive and interact with my circumstances with grace and positivity and hope and love and courage and just this unstoppable belief in myself. And I was like, that's what it's going to take. It's truly going to take these words to be in that 8%. And I just thought, what best version of me has to be in this cup right now, because it's a bumpy road. And it all just came out of that moment.
Why do you think that um one of the biggest drivers to change comes from pain, whether it's voluntary or involuntary? For example, yours, I would say, is involuntary pain. But
Mm.
why do you think that that creates who we are as opposed to if life was easy?
Mm. I'm so glad life isn't easy. And I don't mean that to dismiss anyone going through painful things right now, but pain is enough of a motivator to drive anyone to want to make a change, right? It really gets you evaluating, it gets you exploring the meaning and stories you've attached to things. I think it also gets you to lean into, your ride or die, like those people in your inner circle who have your back no matter what. And one of my favorite, like, nerdy books on my bookshelf behind me is, it's written by a Stanford University professor called Kelly McGonigal. And the book is called The Upside of Stress. And so what she did as a researcher in her book, The Upside of Stress, is she actually goes into the brain and the neurochemistry of what starts to happen in your brain in highly distressing, painful, uncomfortable moments in life. And some really cool things that she found was that the pain is the trigger for the resiliency and the personal growth. So just like for muscles to get stronger, we can't just sit around and watch Netflix and be like, oh my gosh, my biceps and my quads are so big. They need to go to the gym and feel the burn and go through strength training workouts in order for that growth to happen. And so when we have emotional and psychological and spiritual pain, that in a way is like the gym that starts to act as the trigger for the resiliency and the growth. We actually know that bonds and communities strengthen in times of pain. So they look at that on a really large cultural level, like 9/11 is a great example, where more people sent cards, more people called their mom on Mother's Day, more people went home for the holiday meals, more people checked in on birthdays following something so tragic. So we see that bonds to the loved ones and friends and family get strengthened, resiliency gets improved, and that quiet self-confidence of, I can handle hard things. So we need to be tested to know that we can come out on the other side and be okay. And I think all of those reasons are why pain, as uncomfortable and, disheartening as it can be, is such an important thing for all of us to be on this path of self-improvement.
Let's see. Interesting. What to switch gears for a moment here. At the end of your sabbatical, what will you go and do first?
I think my first thing back is, I have been in my creativity time building a brand new way of coaching that I've never really fully embraced or done before. And it is a nutrition meets mindset, meets story work, meets immense, intense personal growth led in a community small group setting. Because I mostly counseled one-on-one when I worked with people, and that's wonderful and I love it. But there is a synergy and a magic when you bring people together in a vetted community where they're all cheering and supporting each other on. So my very first way of returning back to client care is to foster and build that community and invite those people in and kick it off with a nutrition, behavior change, mindset, inner dialogue, story work. And we're going to work on all parts of ourselves, and we're going to do it together and cheer each other on. So I'm really excited to come back and start coaching in that way, because it's not, for 13 years, I've always just coached one-on-one very privately. So it's an evolution of growing as a coach.
Do you think when you say that, I think about business and business problems. Do you think that in business there are problems or that people have problems?
I think there's both. I mean,
Okay.
if you work with people, there will always be problems when people
Mm-hmm.
are involved.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a great reframe, and I have Tony
Okay.
Robbins actually to thank for this.
Okay.
So when I went to Business Mastery in 2017 with him, there is a fantasy, a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, that if you get to a certain size in business or a certain amount of revenue or a certain point that you've decided, your problems will just go away. Nope. Super mega rich people have problems. Really big corporations with lots of money have problems. What's happening is you're choosing which problems you're trading in and trading out. So if you're a solopreneur, there's a whole bunch of problems that come with being a solopreneur, right? There's only so much time that you can trade for money as a solopreneur. So you bring on employees and a team. Cool, you can make more revenue. But now you have a new set of problems you didn't have as a solopreneur, which is like leadership and management of people who now have to represent you and your brand and your organization and vision. Maybe you're like, I want more automation and I want more technology and less people. You're just trading different kinds of problems that come with depending more on technology. So in any game of business, and I think it is just as a game, you're always trading problems. It's just, are you trading your problems up for better problems? So maybe with more money and more power, you can go after and solve even bigger problems in the world and have more impact, but you're still just dealing with problems. So
Mm-hmm.
again, it's kind of like expecting the cup to never be bumped. You will always be bumped. Your business will always have problems. It's just, are they good problems that you're choosing and you want to solve, or are they bad problems that are painful and need to motivate you to change something about yourself or your business to eliminate that bad problem?
Mm. Let
Does that
me,
make sense?
yes, let me reframe it one more time though. Um,
Okay.
if you have a problem outside of you, do you think that all problems can be solved internally, and in turn, the external problem will be solved?
Hmm. My answer to that is no,
Okay.
because I think there still will be external problems
Mm-hmm.
in some circumstances. You can own control your response and how you want to show up to it. And let me maybe give a practical example so that this makes sense. So this isn't my truth, but say I was
Mm-hmm.
married and then divorced and had a child in that marriage and divorce. Now I'm married and I'm not divorced and I don't have children, but say you have an ex that you chose to leave. You guys just weren't a healthy couple together, and how that ex wants to nourish, like feed the child and screen time, and maybe you don't agree with their food habits and screen time rules. You can create boundaries in your own home environment. When that child's with you, you can communicate politely, cordially to your ex-partner what your wishes are when your child is with them. But we all ultimately can't control each other. And I often
Mm-hmm.
have to remind my mom this of my dad, to be like, you can't control him, right? Like, no one can make anyone else do what they want. We're all agents of our own freedom. And I think where people get really miserable is they want everything in the world and everyone else around them to behave exactly like they want. And then they're like, and there's no problems because everyone and everything is doing what I wanted them. I don't know a world where that exists. So I think a more realist interpretation is that, yes, there will still be outside problems, but I control in here in my brain,
Mm-hmm.
I control in here in my body, I control what's in my cup and what comes out of me. And sometimes there is just this like acceptance. And can I speak in a metaphor
Mm-hmm.
quickly? I
Mm-hmm.
legit have a coaching exercise designed for this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's a little bit crass. I call it the boob exercise because you'll see a boob when I describe it. There's a
Mm-hmm.
little inner circle, kind of like a nipple. Then there's a little bit bigger circle around it, like an areola. And then there's a big fat circle, like a boob. And so I changed it with a heart. So it's like a pasty, a little bit funny. So the biggest part of the boob is all the outside noise. It's all the people with opinions and social media and bosses and outside people and neighbors that maybe you don't get along with. They're just squawking and making noise. Then if we go circle inner, we have our trusted inner council, our friends, family, healthcare provider, like the people you choose, you allow into your inner circle that you trust, and you are willing to allow influence or weigh in on your decision making. And then the teeniest, tiniest middle part of the three circles is just you. I call this your heart or your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
We're stressed out when we let the large outside noise dictate how we're going to feel for that day. That's why people feel upset about problems. If I put my head on the pillow at night and I lead with my heart, I lead with intuition, I lead with my core values and being a good human, I'm super considerate to the people in my inner council and vice versa. And they can weigh in and influence and vice versa. But ultimately, I have final decision making over my life, my choices, my actions. And I just try to be a good person to the people out there in the greater world. But the noise and squawking and how they want to show up, I just accept I can't control them. I can't control how they're going to vote. I can't control how they're going to drive. I can't control anything that they're going to do. So I just set them down, because carrying them is like carrying the weight of the world on your back. And so I think when I think about problems in that way, there's not a lot of scary problems when you're thinking about just the inner part of those 3 layers. Is I just have to control and solve the problems in my immediate life, respond to the things that are beyond my control. So to me, that takes away a lot of the stress. I'm a realist. There's still problems out there.
Yeah.
But my circle of influence is highly tuned in to where I have the most, and my actions can actually make a difference.
I see. That's very helpful. So,
do you see the boob though? Did
yes,
it come out as that?
Yes, I did see
Yeah.
it. But as we wind down, because I want to make sure that we have time for our last question here. The last guest has left you a question, okay? And this is actually fun.
Ooh,
This actually
okay.
worked out. This actually worked out really well, because this is from Mama Simmons. So she did not know
Oh,
that she was
I
asking you,
love it.
though.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
her question is actually, and this is a very easy one for you, I feel, is to issue a challenge for this week for anyone listening to this podcast.
Oh, I love it. Okay. I'm going to circle back to something we talked about earlier. And my challenge is do the teacup exercise. Draw an empty teacup. And I want you to think of 3 to 5 words. There's no real right number, but 3 to 5 words is a good starting point of how do you want to show up when you get jostled? What needs to come out of you to be the best person, the best version of you in the good times and when times are more challenging? I think anyone listening will get a ton of value out of trying that exercise. And that would be my challenge to all of our listeners.
I will be doing that today. So I'm excited. There were already words that were flowing that I want to
I love it.
fill my teacup with. So is there anything that you want to leave us with as we conclude here, or where we can find you, or things that you have happening in the future?
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So I am very available because I'm on sabbatical right now. And like I said, my main mission is to just add value and give back. So one of the ways I'm doing that is I have a completely free nutrition liftoff course. It's full of fun metaphors and analogies and free resources you can use. And you can find that at prospernutritioncoaching.com or prospernc.com. Both of those will get you there. I'm on Instagram at prosper_NC, or if you want to just email me and, ask me a question, I'm at info@prospernc.com. But yeah, that's what I'm up to right now. And then come this fall, this September, we have our next launch of our certification, which is our big nutrition training certification program. And that's where we certify health coaches to be even greater nutrition coaches for their clients. And we do a lot of fun mindset, words, game, stories as part of the behavior change process when it comes to eating and food and healthy body image.
Wow, that's really cool. So I will make sure that this comes out before then. So
Thanks, Shawn.
thank you very much for coming on here, Jen. I think people are really gonna enjoy this, and there's a lot of actionable things that people can go and take from this. So
Love it. Well, thank
all
you.
right.
Thanks,
Yeah.
listeners.
Yeah, sweet. Thanks, guys.